Welcome back to the Nice Podcast, where we read and observe the pre-events of 9/11 from the beginning through the hunt for Al-Qaeda and the first impact. Starring Jacob Bonnarigo, welcome back to the podcast.
Glad to be here with you again.
And besides him today is myself, Jonathan Celli. Jacob, although we have a brief time together, we have a lot to cover. Today we review the award-winning novel and documentary. This is actually streaming on Hulu. Come check it out, The Looming Tower.
I like the book a lot. It brings a whole new aspect of the tragic events of 9/11 and the uprising of Al-Qaeda. The knowledge from this book helps people learning about terrorism understand the motives of these people that commit these acts, just like 9/11.
Well, without a further ado, let's jump into it. Lawrence writes The Looming Tower. All right, let's begin. How about we start with a question to kick it off? Why did Islamic terrorism develop? Jacob, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. People, such as Osama bin Laden, believe that the U.S. assisting in Saudi Arabia was a violation to Islam. He was afraid of foreign influencers gaining power over the Muslim religion and the Holy Land. Bin Laden thought the threat of Iraq invading Kuwait could be defended by the Saudi nationalist fighters, the Mujahideen, during the Gulf War in the early 90s. The hate that people like bin Laden got from foreign countries truly began from involvement. For example, when the Soviet Union was in Saudi Arabia, young to old people of the country fought with the Mujahideen to make them leave.
Yeah, I agree. The ties into what Osama believes as a person at the time. He saw the Mujahideen's success against the Soviets. He experienced fighting with the rebels, and it shows at an early age his anger against defending the Holy Land. The anger sort of carried on to where the Gulf War came along. Bin Laden did not want influence from the United States. In the book, he actually goes to the prince at the time to discuss his young Al-Qaeda instead of the world's strongest military to defend Saudi Arabia. There in the Looming Tower, there's a quote: "You don't need Americans. You don't need any other non-Muslim troops. Will be enough," on page 179.
But do keep in mind that bin Laden's ask was denied. In his head, this was a failure. The United States reigned victory over him. After this event, his opinions on the United States would escalate, and he would focus on his own campaign on the U.S. So to finish off the question, foreign influence and the fight to protect the Muslim religion began the development of terrorism.
True. Also remember that Al-Jihad, the Egyptian side of Al-Qaeda, was in the same footsteps before they came together. One Egyptian under Zawahiri and one Afghan Celli bin Laden both wanted to protect the Muslim religion. Defending the Muslim religion, they also got the backbone of their terrorism in the Middle East. When Al-Qaeda was made on 9/10 of 1988, one of the main structures was to defend their religion.
Changing topics, how about I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. How did the West respond to the rise of the Islamic terrorism?
Well, this could be heavily debated, It's hard to tell due to the lack of intel in the 90s on how well the United States reacted to their terrorism threat, but the Looming Tower helped solve this problem.
Yeah, the CIA was successful at finding leads pre-9/11, but they had serious trouble having important intel being missed. For example, the United States could have used the assets they had. Fahd al-Qaiso, who was a planner and attacker of the USS Cole, could have been used as a good asset for the U.S. The USS Cole bombing should have caused the FBI and CIA to interrogate Qaiso more to find out about future attacks such as 9/11. In the Looming Tower, we have a quote on page 408. It says, "Soufan got his luggage off the plane, but he was puzzled. What did Qaiso, the sleeping cameraman in the Cole bombing, have to do with 9/11?
This is funny. The quote shows the lack of attention in details the U.S. had. The U.S. had intel that the Cole bombings was Al-Qaeda, but they still didn't know how to interrogate Fahd al-Qaiso. I also agree that the CIA and the FBI responded well with the attacks to figure out who did it, but they failed on connecting the dots. One thing to address is how the FBI and the CIA succumbed to the fact that they did not do enough to stop Al-Qaeda. Let me ask this, Jacob. How come on page 362, once the planes hit the towers, the operatives defending the terrorism in the United States said, it's Al-Qaeda? It fully reveals, although 9/11 was so unpredictable, the U.S. still did not do enough to defend it.
And too close on the topic, we can say that O'Neill, before he resigned as head of defending the threat, may have been too focused on his family situations and searching for an end to the Al-Qaeda threat.
All right. Changing topics, let's go on to our third question. Our third question is, what strategic decisions should Western leaders make to stop terrorism moving forward? You know what? I'll just go ahead and start. You have to make sure and be ready for things to happen. We know from reading this book, The Looming Tower, that anything could happen. There's people around the world that would, do things bad against the United States. It could be anywhere around the world. Now that we're in a time of possible World War III with Ukraine and Russia, anything could really happen to how we can defend it. And we have to be ready for these situations.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Also, adding on to that, I feel that to prevent these situations, we have to be really focused, because you have to learn the mistakes we've made throughout history, like 9/11 and terrorist attacks even before that and after that. We have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to pay attention and make sure the people that are in charge and leading the expeditions to end these terrorist organizations know what they're doing. That, like John O'Neill, he was good at his job, but he also had a lot of family problems, and we see that in the Looming Tower, that we have to have people in charge and that know what they're doing. They have experience.
Yeah.
They are definitely hard workers. They have their family lives and priorities sorted out. That it really takes those kind of people to make a stop to these terrorist organizations and make sure.
So
9/11 never happens again.
Yeah, so stuff like that. It's like basically we need to learn from people like John O'Neill. For some background information, guys, John O'Neill, he had like 3 different lives. He had a wife and he had 2 girlfriends and a kid. So while he was working with the FBI trying to stop Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and Zawahiri, so this shows that we need people defending our country at the top of our game, and if we cannot do that, we're in trouble. And this is a scary time in our world, but if we have the right people in our government to defend and get the details, and like we've been saying earlier, look through the dots and look on the past mistakes that we had in the future, I'm telling you that we can stop attacks in the future like this. So thank you guys for being in this podcast. Thank you, Jacob. It was really good. So quick 8 or 9 minutes, but we got a lot of jam-packed stuff. Number 1, why did Islamic terrorism develop? How did the West respond to the rise of Islamic terrorism? And part 3, what strategic decisions should Western leaders make to stop terrorism moving forward? Well, this was a good one, Jacob. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, so guys, this is a good one. See you on the next podcast. See you later.